Welcome to the C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Jen,
I'm Peter.
and today we're talking about Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh, goody.
On purpose.
On purpose.
Oh, jeez.
I'm not sure what we were smoking, but...
I don't think I can watch this movie again.
Oh, and I did it twice this week.
So, every time I watch this movie, I find something else that I don't like in it. Which is why I don't think I can keep watching it.
I mean, when you don't like the entire thing, what else can you find that you don't like?
You'd be surprised. So let's dive right in.
Okay.
God, where do I start? All right, the one thing that I really noticed in this viewing of it was the scene where Deanna Troi is violated by the Viceroy or I should say violated by Shinzon via the Viceroy.
Yes.
That is like a sexual assault because she's in the middle of a sex act when it happens, and she's mind assaulted. And so she's in sickbay and she's pleading with Captain Picard to be relieved of duty because she's a liability. And he's like, if you can endure more of these assaults, I need you by my side. What?
Listen, if you can handle being molested a little bit longer, just put up with it.
Why are we still here?
Oh my God.
Why are we still in orbit around this planet? Why are we still talking to them? And why the fuck aren't the shields up?
Holy shit. Okay, yes. I cannot tell you how many times during this movie, and that's all within like the first 25, 30 minutes of the movie, how many times I sat there and I was like, okay, now they have 15 years of experience here as a crew together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Picard states that several times during the wedding scene. So you have all this time and obviously all the episodes that we've seen of all the shenanigans and the bullshit that they've put up with from countless species and specifically the Romulans. And we're still sitting here. Okay. When they go to the planet and they find the positronic signals of B4, a great name, by the way. When they find B4 and the locals ambush them, and then they're all like a ton of them are sitting there around their ship, like, I would have been thinking that's a little odd. And then they get back up to the ship and they start doing all their, boopity boops with B4 and Data, and it's just like, there's some pieces of this puzzle that don't fit right. What are we doing? And then the whole interaction between Shinzon and Picard and everything, how many times do they have to just stub their toe before they put shoes on, so to speak?
Well, we can talk about all of those things because like the Prime Directive, this is a pre-warp planet where they find these positronic signals.
Yeah.
Like and Picard even they put they hang a lantern on it, as it's called, where Picard actually says on the surface, this doesn't feel right, or he says something to that extent.
Oh my God, I wrote that down.
Like he says that, and that's a writing technique to like, yes, we know this is kind of suspicious, but we're not going to do anything about it. But all of this time with the Prime Directive and non-interference and whatnot, and they're just blazing around the surface of this planet in their dune buggy collecting B4 parts with zero regard for where any of the locals might be.
Yeah.
Because conveniently they can detect the positronic signal from light years away just cruising in space, but they can't get a transporter beam down to the surface because of a potential ion storm.
Yeah, that's one thing that I marked. And the music. Oh my God. Can you make it any more obvious that something dramatic is going to happen here? The music during that entire sequence, aside from, Picard's initial dune buggy joyride, is just like ominous music. Okay, you're leaving no element of surprise for the audience. And then like Worf is supposed to be this badass warrior who's always like, it's a good day to die, with his bat'leth in hand. And yet Data's little arm, or B4's little arm, reaches out and grabs him, and he freaks out like a little girl. Like, oh my God. Like, I get, okay, we're trying to be funny, we're trying to be silly, but come on. You can have such better opportunities than that.
Oh, and speaking of Worf, in the scene right after the wedding where he's complaining that he has to appear naked at the Betazoid ceremony, Worf should be the one that has no problem bearing all as a strapping Klingon warrior.
Again, I get that you're trying to make a joke here, you guys, but really?
And so there's a line that Picard says after that. This is before they go down to the planet where Riker's protesting that he has to stay because Picard's going to go. And Picard calls him Mr. Troy. And I'm trying to figure out.
So if I remember correctly, there was an episode during the series TNG that they talked about. I think it was actually one of the episodes with Deanna's mother. You know how she was always just wet for Picard.
Yeah.
I believe that they said something that they made mention of when Betazoids marry, they take on the matriarchal name. So
I'll have to look that up. I don't remember that.
But I feel like that is correct, but I could be wrong.
That could make sense, but the way Picard says it, it's like he's emasculating Riker.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a dig, and I'm like, this is the 24th century, borderline 25th century. Haven't we evolved around, come on. I mean, to me, it felt like a slight against Troy for absolutely no reason. Like, there's nothing. Riker's getting the better end of this deal. By far. So, it's those types of nuances in the film that, I watch it again and it's like, God, now that pisses me off too. At first time I saw it, didn't really think anything of it. But now as I've grown and have gotten married myself, it's like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
I just sit here and I think to myself, okay, when I'm writing my stories and jotting ideas down, I try to put myself in the situation that I'm creating, right? I don't sit there and think, if I'm writing something that's set in the future or the past, I try to imagine what that time frame is like. And so if you're setting a utopian society or creating a world with a utopian society in the future, you might want to think a little progressively,
right?
And not make these kind of comments. At the time, 2002 when this movie was made, okay, that little dig was funny for the people watching the movie, but in the story itself, I don't know. I would have probably chosen a better line of dialogue.
Yeah. Well, so we see Janeway in this. Kate Mulgrew has a cameo as Admiral Janeway, and her little scripted bit, perfectly executed, perfectly delivered in a very Janeway-esque style dialogue.
As expected.
And that's probably one of the two things in the film that I like. That and the wedding. I didn't really have a problem with the wedding itself. They'd been, these two characters, Troy and Riker had been dancing with each other throughout the series. There'd been this tension, like it or not. I know a lot of people never liked that pairing, but at least they finally did something with it.
Yeah.
So I liked the wedding. I had no problem with the wedding. I was disappointed they cut out Will Wheaton's scenes because you see him in the wide shot at the table, but he's never. He actually filmed for 3 days on Nemesis, but all of his dialogue was cut from the final. So you never actually see it. But if in the wide shots, he's sitting there right next to Beverly.
I didn't even notice him.
Yeah.
I've watched this movie twice this week, and I did not notice him in either one of those viewings.
Well, like I said, he's not the principal in the shot. It's like a 2-shot with Beverly, and she's in the foreground, and so that's where your eye line goes. But he's there. In uniform, which is weird because he's not in Starfleet, but he's in a uniform. Okay.
Yeah, doesn't he... Where does he end up going? Doesn't he go with the time police or something like that?
It's effectively, yeah, he goes with the travelers and he's pseudo non-corporeal in various points. Don't really know. They kind of hint at it at Picard when he does his cameo in Picard, and I think it's season 2. I don't remember. I don't remember much of season 2. But anyway, yeah. So they never, to my knowledge, they don't explain how he comes back for the wedding. He's just there, he's there in uniform as Wesley Crusher.
Maybe that's why they were hoping that people wouldn't really notice him. Because I didn't.
My understanding was that the director of this film was not a Star Trek fan, didn't know much about Star Trek, didn't really see the relevance of the character probably. And cut for time and action and pacing because this film was supposed to compete with other action movies that were coming out during the summer this was released. So they're not going to get all nostalgic in, 2002. They're going to cut to the action, which is strange because following the arrival of the Enterprise at Romulus, the movie stalls.
Oh my God.
Big time.
It's just like you hit the brakes and where are we going? What are we
so
doing?
like we're moving along with the wedding and the character interaction, and then we go and we have this dune buggy thing with picking up data parts on this planet, because not suspicious at all. And then we arrive at Romulus, and okay, we're not in the neutral zone. We're in the Romulan Empire. We are in orbit around the Romulan home planet.
Yeah.
Shields down.
Yep.
We've been sitting there for 17 hours.
And
nary a word.
And what happens?
And Worf is like, recommend we raise shields.
No,
like,
no, Mr. Worf. Do not raise shields.
Worf is shot down again, and then the scimitar decloaks. Raising shields. No. Let's not do that, Worf. Okay. So then we send like our 5 top crew down to the planet.
Yeah.
Like, Worf is their only security. We're sending Riker for silverback reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So Riker's only purpose in going down on the away mission is so when Shinzon hits on Deanna, he can like menacingly walk around her and like mark his territory.
Oh, and when Data like doesn't even try to hide that he's scanning, and Shinzon's like, "Oh, don't worry about it.
Just use your toys. I don't care."
I was just like, "Wait, what?
Can I touch your hair?"
Oh,
what?
Creep factor of 11.
Yeah, I kind of wish Deanna had said something.
Yeah.
But, we had Riker circling around her being all, like, marking his territory, and someone changed the subject. So that scene took forever.
Oh.
And then you think, okay, finally, we're through with the exposition. It's like, no, now we're going to have a dinner scene between Picard and Shinzon. Ugh. I, struggled to watch that just because I'm like, I don't even know what they're talking about, that it just doesn't matter. We're hearing Shinzon's backstory. Don't care. Don't really care. But it is interesting in that the what makes good elements in storytelling, in whether it's film or a novel or whatever, is you have your principal plot. And your principal plot may or may not involve a struggle with a protagonist, because your protagonist is obviously involved in the principal plot. But sometimes their struggle is unique or separate or integrated into the plot. So in this case, you have the whole Shinzon wants to destroy the Federation as your main plot, and then Picard seeing Shinzon as a reflection of himself. That's the internal struggle with Picard. Yeah. So this dinner scene is sort of designed to set up that internal struggle, when if you think of Shinzon not as a clone but like an identical twins can have the exact same experiences, but they're two different people.
Yeah.
So even if Picard had Shinzon's life, that doesn't necessarily mean he would have turned out like Shinzon, and vice versa. So I felt that whole struggle was sort of meaningless.
Yes.
Now, picture, if you will, you are a clone of a human. You were cloned by Romulans. Romulans cloned you. Romulans made you, and then when you were no longer useful to them, they send you to dilithium mines on Remus, where you're punished by presumably Romulans and Remans. And so you grow up, and your enemy's the Federation.
Yeah, exactly.
What? Okay.
Why do you have such horrible hatred towards the Federation that you've never even known other than being told about?
They have, like, you're human, so I get that you don't like humans because you're treated differently. But humanity, the Federation, they're not your enemies. They didn't send you to the dilithium mines. They didn't create you.
They haven't been whipping you, like he said, spend 18 hours under the lash of a Romulan and you'll learn patience. Yeah, okay, we see that you kind of have patience, but again, why aren't you just annihilating all the Romulans? You have this massive weapon.
Isn't the Romulan Empire enough to start with? Because you just got it. Like, you really haven't even flexed your muscle in all of Romulan territory, and now you're going to take on the whole of the Federation? Now, I get he has this, like, genetic bullshit thing with his cloning where he needs Picard's transplanted blood or whatever. Like, so I get, like, targeting the Enterprise with B4, luring him in and to do all that. That makes sense. But to, like, No, your ultimate goal is to destroy the Federation. They're not your enemy,
No.
dude. And you should be fine with the whole of the Romulan Empire because it's not small.
No, it's a huge empire.
And it takes its own managing, and you just want to take all that and the Federation
and just perform genocide.
With one ship.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
One ship.
Yeah, no, that segues into something that I was thinking about this last time, like this morning when I was watching it. He must have like hundreds of spies throughout the Federation because of all the information that he has. I mean, he has the timing down perfectly. He knows that the Enterprise is going to be passing this planet, that he can spread B4's body all over. And so how is he getting this information? It can't be luck. He can't just sit there and be like, oh, well, hopefully somebody will come along and hopefully that ship will be the Enterprise with Picard on it. I mean, there's
a lot of that. And I mean, they indicate like Talora, I think is her name, the Romulan senator who leaves the device in the opening.
Oh my God.
Because apparently there's no security in the Romulan Senate.
This bright red device.
Big shiny thing.
It's huge. And it's just, she just leaves it sitting there on the desk.
Gotta be emitting all kinds of Thalaron radiation.
And nobody fucking says, oh, hey, by the way, you left your compact here. Come back and get your makeup kit. And then it opens up. Nobody sees it. Nobody sees it opening up. And then a bright green light starts appearing. Shiny. And everybody's just like, oh, pretty. Oh, shit. Go get her back here. And I'm dead. It's like,
okay, so
fuck. I thought you guys were supposed to be one of the smartest species in the universe.
All right, and speaking of spies, the Romulans are fairly good at it. Yeah. Their intelligence network is pretty vast.
As we've seen in the series and the subsequent movies and shows.
So the Remans experimenting with Thalaron radiation is probably not news to them. Maybe put some fucking security involved in the Senate. Like, maybe, I get the Enterprise didn't normally detect Thalaron radiation because it's banned, but maybe the Romulans, when they're passing through security, kind of had
you think?
Rad sniffers looking for that sort of Nope. Anybody just come into the Senate chambers, leave their makeup, and... Isn't
Remus supposed to be a moon orbiting Romulus and it's tidally locked?
It's tidally locked, but I thought it was tidally locked with the sun, not with... Like, it's a planet. I think it's a separate planet.
But it is close to Romulus.
Yeah, it orbits close to Romulus.
The Romulans basically run internment camps for the Remans on their own planet. I mean, that's what it appears to be, you know, while watching it. It's like, okay, this is a slave race. I mean,
basically, yeah, it's a subset, or I think it's a second tier species within the Romulan Empire that evolved within their system. And I don't know that they've really delved in canonically with
not really
officially where the Remans fall. You know, obviously the Romulans are some sort of offshoot of the Vulcans, but how the Remans, because they clearly look different than Romulans, and how those two species interact is, it sounds like Remans are treated as second tier. They're used as cannon fodder, they're used as fighters, soldiers, and then slave labor.
Yeah.
And why the Remans would think the Federation would be their enemy...
And again, the amount of information and intel that Shinzon is getting about the Enterprise specifically. I mean, you have to have some sort of in with the Federation. So why aren't they communicating with the Federation?
Right.
You know, circling back, you know, why is his beef with the Federation? I can understand, like, he's curious about Picard. So, I mean, there's just so many possibilities to go in a completely different direction, but the writers and directors were just like, nope, we're going to push forward with this bullshit.
Okay. So much bullshit.
So much. Oh, speaking of bullshit, it struck me that the two principal black characters in the show and in the movie, I mean, Worf, the actor, is a black man, but his character is an alien, a Klingon. But then you have Guinan and LaForge at the wedding, and they just have to throw them together at a table and have them interact. Not saying that they wouldn't do that, because there are many times that the two of them interacted during the series, but it just felt really forced. I don't know. I guess
Yeah, I would have expected Guinan, given for Whoopi Goldberg to do, because it's basically a cameo.
Yeah.
Like, you would expect her cameo to actually be with, like, the lead, Picard.
Yeah.
Or
they always had that
wedding
close
couple.
relationship.
Like,
or yeah.
but no, it's just
Not that
Geordi.
I love both the actors
Oh,
and
yeah,
I love
yeah.
both the characters, but I just felt that was such a forced scene. Like, let's just make sure that we give our black people more screen time. Let's try and make it more, natural.
Yeah.
And not forced.
Yeah. And that's where, it's Whoopi Goldberg. We can't cut her. We can cut Will Wheaton because it's
Will Wheaton.
But we can't cut
Wheaton.
We can't cut Whoopi. So
yeah,
and that was probably the thinking behind it.
Well,
it was probably something as ridiculous as that.
And again with Worf, this big badass motherfucker, and he's absolutely schnockered after like 5 minutes.
Yeah, where's his tolerance?
Yeah.
Clearly, he hasn't been drinking enough Klingon blood wine, and this is post Dominion War, where they were doing a lot of heavy drinking.
Oh yeah,
his tolerance. I think Worf was just terribly written in that movie, beginning to end. Just raising shields, no.
Captain, we really need to raise shields. No.
And then we're in sickbay. The scene we already talked about, where Troy's trying to get out of work because she was just violated, and Picard's mid please go back to work and continue to get assaulted, and he's beamed away. And what does Riker say? Worf, raise shields. I'm just thinking Worf is on the bridge, pounding the console, motherfuckers, I told you.
I would love to see all the bloopers and outtakes of what's the actor's name?
Michael Dorn.
Michael Dorn sitting there going, "I fucking told you we should raise the shields. You never listened to me." I would love to see him just perform a scene where he's just super pissed off and he literally breaks something.
Well, we've touched on this. In that scene, Troy and Riker are dressed. Mm-hmm. They were not dressed when the incident happened. So and Beverly has run her scans, and Picard is in sickbay. So some amount of time has passed from the assault to where they're having this discussion in sickbay. And okay, your principal crew was just assaulted, and you're still sitting there with your dick hanging out, shields down.
Yes.
Wanting to continue negotiations with a guy who literally just assaulted your counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we still here?
Exactly. I mean, the second Picard came back to the ship after dinner, if I was Picard, I would have been like, let's make a tactical retreat, get the fuck out of here, contact Starfleet Command, figure out something else, get a couple more ships out here. I mean, they had a plethora of intel that they could have provided to smarter people, at home base, and they could have been working on a plan. But no, we have to sit here and pretend like we're tougher than we are.
So in the Janeway scene, she's like, the new Romulan Praetor has requested a Federation envoy. There's a sense on the part of the Federation that there's some urgency. Mm-hmm. We really need to send someone fast, and you're the closest ship. Well, Picard has a plethora of diplomatic experience, sure. But I would think the Federation would have teams of ambassadors and diplomats and people specifically skilled in the area of Romulan nuanced politics who would be better suited.
You would think
for this kind of mission, but if you go in that route, you don't have a movie, you don't have a story. Yeah. How do you get your principal characters there? So I understand getting Picard as an introduction, but the moment one of your officers is assaulted by the Praetor,
hold up, wait a minute,
there's no trust there.
No,
and what's so infuriating is if you can endure more of these assaults, I need you to. Of course, then he's beamed away at that point. I'm like, you need her to what, motherfucker?
Yeah.
You still want to negotiate with a guy who just effectively mind raped
your
counselor, and this is okay.
No.
No,
get the fuck out of
this is not okay. This is not acceptable. This is not a foundation of trust. These are not people you want to be negotiating with. Yes, there's something nefarious afoot, and it needs to be investigated, but it doesn't need to be investigated with your shields down in orbit, like Shinzon knows that you know what he just did. Like, he's been caught.
Yeah.
You know?
Like
and
that...
so the minute that assault was reported, okay.
Shields up, get the fuck out of here.
Shields up at the very least,
Yeah.
because, okay, now Shinzon has to do something. He's going to do something. We got that whole, creepy supervillain vibe from him from that very long, painful opening scene, that he's the kind of guy who's going to do something. But no, we'll just keep staying here with our shields down. Even though Deanna's just been assaulted. Oh. It's just, it's poor leadership. It's poor tactics.
It's just poor writing. It's just piss poor writing. Like, the writers, like, good on you for writing a script. Huzzah. But whoever approved the script for the big screen, that person should no longer be allowed to approve anything. They should go back to working at McDonald's because they're fucking terrible.
I don't remember who the screenwriter credited for the screenplay was, but I do know that Brent Spiner actually is credited, given a writing credit as part of the story. I don't think Brent Spiner had much to do with the Shinzon story, would be my guess. My guess is that he probably had more to do with like the B4 and the Data dying thing. And so Data's story arc, if you look at Nemesis, Picard has his weird protagonist struggle with the Shinzon character mirror image, but Data has a bit of an arc with B4 and with his subsequent death at the end of the film. And that to me would be something that Brent Spiner would have wanted to have a hand in controlling in the writing process. Still, I would not have put my name to this story on purpose, if I could help it.
Realistically, the only enjoyable character in this entire movie was Data.
Yeah.
I mean, he still has that childlike innocence, even though has at this point, 20 years of experience with the Federation.
At least.
And, 15 years at least with this crew. But he still has that childlike innocence and sense of wonder. And now he has a little brother that he feels kind of like, I can teach you.
Yeah.
Like my daughter. I tried to teach my daughter. And obviously that whole scene when he's basically backing up his memory files into B4, it's like, okay, the first time I saw the movie, I was a kid. Well, not really a kid. I was a young adult, but still, I'm like, wasn't really paying attention. Didn't really think about, the nuances of telling a story and the, what's the word I'm looking for? Foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I watch it again and I'm like, that's a huge foreshadowing moment.
It is.
It is. Okay, well, I just want him to have all the memories that I have. And then what happens? Fucking dies. And at the very end of the movie, what is B4 sitting there doing? He's sitting there humming the song
from the wedding. Yeah, and of course that song from the wedding is the opening to Star Trek Picard, because Issa Briones, who plays Data's daughter in Picard, sings that song.
I've got to go back and watch Picard again.
So like I said, it's this week I chose Nemesis this week because it plays into Picard. And
guess where we're gonna go next, kids?
Actually, we're going to Strange New Worlds next, but
guess where we might go next, kids?
We'll talk about
this is called foreshadowing.
We'll talk about Picard at length, I'm sure. But yeah. So my theory on why B4 got Data's memories was, okay, it's scripted. Data's going to die at the end of this film, but if there's another film, Brent Spiner can play B4, and B4 has Data's memories, and we can evolve B4 to be like a dumber version of Data and be even more comic relief if there were another film. But there wasn't. How does Shinzon have an accent?
Oh my god. Seriously. And what is that accent?
Don't even know.
It's like not quite British, but it kind of is. And
yeah. Okay.
Like if he's gonna have an accent at all, it's gonna be a Riemann accent. He's gonna have that like guttural, I don't know what.
Yes.
It's just so ridiculous. Okay, so kind of going back to what we were talking about when they went to that pre-warp world. They have all that technology.
Mm-hmm.
Starfleet is extremely gifted with all the tech that they have. Scanning for life signs, shields, warp tech, all that shit. Yet Worf, when he walks over, and again, him being, they wrote him to be a little bit of a pussy in that scene. He's got his tricorder out. He's scanning in every direction, and he looks confused and looks up and into the distance, like, where is this? There's nothing around him but bushes and rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he looks up and wonders where the signal could possibly be coming from. And the arm grabs him. I'm like, come on, you fucking assholes.
Well, it's funny that, you know, that Data hops out and he's like, talks about some random bullshit interference. It's within a few meters. Okay, it's within a few meters, but you could detect this signal light years away.
Exactly.
Like, what do you mean you can't localize it now that you're like a few meters from it?
And
Like,
you're in orbit and you can see 6 distinct locations
Yes.
on the map. But again, you're a few meters from it and you can't fucking
you
locate
can't
it.
see it. Can't scan it. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of that didn't make sense. And they, you know, this doesn't feel right. But we're going to go with it. And we're going to bring B4 back to the ship and let's put them together. Because the last time we put an android together that we found on a planet,
That worked out
that's
so well.
for, you know, for lore.
Yeah, it worked out great for lore.
Worked out great for lore.
Yeah, and with the complete and utter lack of security.
Again.
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 And again. And the inconsistency, like, okay, so I get that, you know, we need plot, you know, we need to push the plot forward and we need to give the audience something fun to watch. But the inconsistency with the technology across the fucking board with this movie and these shows. So when they are kind of dead in the water, or is it before that? I can't remember exactly where or when, but when Shinzon signals that he contacts the Enterprise and he says to Picard, "Meet me in your ready room," and Picard's just like, the fuck? And then walks into his ready room, and then Shinzon has a hologram sitting at his desk, at Picard's desk.
You'll never find my hollow emitters.
What?
Why are there hollow emitters in my office that I don't know about?
When did you get them there, and how are you projecting through the shielding? Because, I mean, in a lot of episodes that I've seen, nobody can get anything through the shields. Unless you're the Borg and you have manipulated something.
That, to me, struck as we need to have these two have an interaction. How can we do it and not have them physically be in the same spot? So it's all contrived, and it's like, no, that's poor storytelling. Like, find a plausible way for these two to have the scene, or not have the scene at all.
Exactly. I get that we need to push the movie forward. We need to push the plot. But really, guys?
Yeah. Really. That's what we're gonna go with. You know, and then it's so convenient. The battle sequence. All right, let's talk about space battle. We talked a little bit about this last week, and ship design. And what happens to the Enterprise with its nice bridge on top of the ship?
Gets fucked.
It gets, and you know, the first person out that gaping hole breach is going to be the no-named ensigns up front, and they get sucked into space before
I made a note about
force field
that.
goes up.
I wrote down at the first moment I saw that character. Now, mind you, I knew that this character was going to die, but I'm sitting there watching him. They don't even give him a name. His name is Helm Officer Branson.
Okay.
So no first name, first and foremost. So obviously he's not a principal character, so he's an expendable character. But I have never seen a cameraman and a director so eager to foreshadow a character's death. Every scene you see him in, he's got this like
I'm gonna die.
I'm gonna die look on his face.
really
And then
does.
what happens? The fucking, like you said, the bridge is right there on the fucking front of the ship. It gets hit by a torpedo and he gets sucked out the fucking hole. And it's just like, first of all, how did nobody else even get injured, let alone get sucked out the fucking hole? And how did nobody hit I mean, the shields should automatically be placed.
Well, like the emergency force fields, however those are rigged.
Yeah.
Those are force field generators. Like they didn't kick on right away, and they should have. Seat belts, ladies and gentlemen.
We've seen them in some of the movies.
Like it's probably a good idea to have them. At least they had handrails they could grip. I noticed that. I'm like, oh, at least they got handles they can hold on to as they're being sucked into space. So right before that scene, a couple of Romulan ships decloak, and the Romulans are siding with the Enterprise, which I really appreciated because they've been hinting at an alliance between, or a softening, I should say, of the Romulans with the Federation, both during the Dominion War, and a little they danced with it a little bit during Next Generation's run. So I thought that was a good opportunity. And I would have, before I saw the movie, when I heard that Nemesis was going to involve the Romulans, I got super excited.
Yeah.
Because there's so much we don't know about the Romulans. It's an opportunity to really develop something, because the Romulan ships, when they decloak and you see them, like, they're beautiful.
They're gorgeous ships.
And I would have really liked to have seen more of Romulans, because we didn't actually see much of Romulans in this. It was Shinzon, who's a human clone.
Yes.
As our principal antagonist, and his viceroy, Ron Perlman as the viceroy. Great casting.
I love Ron Perlman, first and foremost. He always makes a good, like, crazy, weird character. He does a great job as a bad guy. Put makeup on him and he just becomes the character. He's such a great actor.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Ron Perlman, you did a great job with this movie. It was the movie that failed you, sir.
It really did.
And Tom Hardy.
And I don't have a problem with Tom Hardy's performance. I just thought his character was stupid.
Again.
Nothing in his performance.
First thing I've ever seen Tom Hardy in. And he did a good job with what he had. But you can have the world's best actors and still have a shitty movie because the script and directing and everything was just terrible.
If it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage.
Patrick Stewart is an amazing actor, but
there were some very cringeworthy moments throughout all of Next Gen where even the talented Patrick Stewart couldn't save the scene because it was just terribly written. So anyway, the Romulans decloak and they kind of side with the Enterprise, and we have this space combat. Now in real practical space combat, ships do not operate very close together at all.
No.
So that when ships blow up and fly apart, the chances of them hitting another ship are very, very
Which we actually
small.
see a scene where one of the Romulan warbirds gets tagged. The wing, I don't know, the part of the ship flies off and hits the Enterprise.
Yes, and thus takes out the Enterprise. That's why in space combat we don't fight close quarters, because it's a smaller targeting window and it's easier for enemy to concentrate fire. And when they hit something, they hit everything. So Starfleet is not military. We have seen this time and again.
Yeah,
why they are not military and why they are bad military. Have no sense of tactics or doctrine or ship design or anything like that. So it's no surprise that for as mighty as the Federation was and is, that they got their ass handed to them in the initial parts of the Dominion War, because they were fighting a military, and Starfleet,
an organized and dedicated military,
and Starfleet does not as disciplined as they are. They don't have.
They are.
Like they think they are. They are not a military. There is a whole lot more structure and discipline in a military organization to be combat effective that you're not getting from a bunch of scientists who are literally coddled on a comfortable spaceship day in and day out.
Oh yeah, and they are coddled. Everything in even like the more militaristic designs of their fleet are still centralized around the comfort of the crew.
Yeah.
And I'm all for comfort, but if you're gonna go into battle, if you're gonna start fighting other species, That's one of the things that. So I'm looking at your poster over here, Jen, of Into Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that admiral had the right idea, just executed it in a wrong way.
Yeah.
But turning there should be a branch, at the very least there should be a branch of the Federation that is strictly military. Have some science officers, obviously, because you never know what you're gonna fucking run into. You never know what you need on the ship while you're out there. But definitely have a military branch of the Federation so that they can take care of situations like the Dominion War, like the Romulans.
Hostile tribe of Klingons or any number of because the Alpha Quadrant is vast and diverse, and not everybody is friendly, and not everybody has the purest of intentions. So even though the Ferengi, who are driven by profit, when we first see them in the Next Generation, they're villainous. They're an antagonistic threat, and Starfleet prides itself on being a fleet of ships dedicated to the exploration of space. Space is dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
So let's bear that in mind in ship design and in tactics. And when we do have to go to war, like you said, the commanders who came from a science background are probably not going to be your best starship commanders when we're talking about fleet engagements. And these fleet admirals aren't bureaucrats anymore. They suddenly need to be out on the line actually directing fleets.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a sore subject for Jen.
All the admirals in Star Trek suck, except for those that are named from the principal characters, like Admiral Janeway. You can't say Admiral Janeway sucked or Admiral Kirk or Admiral Picard because they came from the we know their backstory, and obviously Janeway never sucks, but
no, we love Janeway.
Kirk wasn't the greatest admiral. He kept trying to get back into command of a starship.
Yeah, he didn't he actively get himself demoted to captain so that he could be back out on
doing his cowboy stuff.
Oh my!
All right, so let's talk about the battle sequence. So close quarter combat. The Romulan ship does a much better job of taking out the Enterprise than the Scimitar.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe Picard's strategy was, let's ram them.
Oh,
Because we don't have anything to fire at them, and they still have 70% shields. So I'm thinking, all right, the Scimitar has 70% shields, but you're going to brute force your way in. All right, so you're going to ram them, and they do, and they collide. And the Enterprise is effectively wedged in the Scimitar. Mm-hmm. And so Shinzon's like, full reverse thrusters. And it's like, okay, this is space physics. You reverse, you're still
taking the ship with you.
You're taking the Enterprise with you, but apparently in this universe, you're not, because the Enterprise decides it's going to reverse thrust with no power. So the ship's disengaged. All right. So at this point, the Scimitar is kind of hull damaged. But it had 70% shields before this.
Yeah.
So where the Enterprise didn't ram the Scimitar, presumably still works. So chances are the Scimitar probably still has operational phasers, photon torpedoes.
And they had 52
because they had
photon banks.
They had a ton of photon banks, right?
She's a predator.
Right, exactly. and so Picard's like, well, if they destroy us, they can't get your blood. Or someone says, if they destroy, that doesn't make any sense. Deanna says it, if they destroy us, he effectively dies because he can't get your blood or whatever. And he's like, it's not about me anymore. So what does Shinzon do? Well, I could fire a torpedo and take them out instantly. I could fire phasers and take them out instantly. Or I could fire up the Thalaron weapon, which takes 7 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like...
Why is it
okay?
Why is it that we always have to have the most ludicrous opportunities for the heroes to get back
into the fight? So we could destroy them with any number of weapons that would take them out, and then we can head on to our mission to destroy Earth because that's what we want to do. But no, let's take 7 minutes, activate the tips of the Thaleron
Oh
weapon.
yeah, and the wings open up super slowly.
And they weren't damaged.
Oh yeah, somehow they weren't damaged
weren't
in all
damaged.
the weapons blasts that they took, the weapons damage that they took, and then getting hit by the Enterprise, like physically hit by the Enterprise. Oh my god. No, it just makes me think one of the best satirical movies against Star Trek was Galaxy Quest.
Oh, I love Galaxy
I
Quest.
love that movie, and
That
the
movie
fact
speaks to me.
at the end of the movie when they stop the self-destruct sequence and
Always stops at 1.
it keeps going down, counting down to 1. It's like, holy shit, that's true. There's always that dramatic moment in a movie, in a Star Trek show or movie, where they sit there and they're right there. All they have to do is just reach out and touch the button. But then the camera stops, pans up to the person who's right in front of it. And then that person looks at somebody else. And there's this dramatic stare down. Boop. Why?
Yeah.
We're all about to die. Fucking hit the button.
And then, of course, in this episode, auto-destruct offline.
At least they did that. At least they're like, okay, well,
Okay.
y'all are stupid, and we're just going to take this out.
Auto-destruct is really, you just release matter-antimatter containment, and that just blows up the warp core. Like, okay, if the auto function of that is disabled, like...
But there's a shield around the warp core, so they can't touch the warp core now.
Okay.
Do you remember that scene where Geordi goes, raise the shields, and then the shields all the way up the warp core?
Okay.
I thought that was kind of ridiculous. I mean, smart that they're finally putting a shield around the warp core, because how many episodes did we see in Star Trek Next Generation where the warp core started leaking and like people were dying from the plasma radiation
or whatever,
or the smoke that is like it eats your flesh, like in First Contact.
Yeah. So the Scimitar has just gotten a chunk of it rammed by the Enterprise, and Shinzon just really, really wants to destroy the Enterprise. They're dead in the water. Enterprise is dead in the water.
Yeah.
Like, their transporters are down because apparently you only have one relay that controls all of the transporters on the whole ship, including the shuttlecraft, so that when that relay goes out, you can't transport anybody anywhere, except unless you have this experimental little comm badge unit transporter device, which dematerializes with you.
Yeah.
that's somehow good. Whatever. Thanks for that. So apparently Data couldn't get to any transporters or fighters or anything on the Scimitar after he was able to do whatever with the Thaleron weapon, which had no means of shutting it down once it started. I mean, he could have, like, I don't know, redirected the beam somewhere else, and then I don't know. There was any number of ways that Data could have saved himself and just didn't. And I get it. They really wanted to kill Data, and they really wanted to kill Data in a heroic way. I'm just saying, well, based on that story, you really didn't need to. I'm like, seems to me he's gotten out of worse scenarios.
Yeah.
I think for me, the really super frustrating part was the scene on the bridge between Picard and Data, where Data wants to go, and Picard insists that he's the better candidate. Like, he has to face... I'm like, no.
No, you
Tactically
don't.
speaking, Data has the highest probability of success, and he has his own way back.
Yeah. He's an android. He can literally bend doorways out of his way.
Right.
He can...
And he can go toe-to-toe with Shinzon really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And make mincemeat of him, deactivate the weapon, and beam back, all without any trouble. But, Picard needs to play the hero. I think that to me is one of those tropes, particularly in Star Trek, that, like, really bugs me. And there was an episode of Stargate Atlantis where Shepard is fighting someone, and I think it's Tayla and Ronan are standing back, and Tayla's like, he needs to do this on his own. And Shepard's like, no, I don't.
I really don't. I love that trope, but I love that when shows realize how tropey it is and how stupid it is, and they're like, nope, Nope, you can help me.
No, just it's like, is it one of the Indiana Jones where the guys with the bullwhip snapping around and Indy just pulls the gun and shoots him? It's kind of like one of those things.
That's such a great scene, but wasn't he like sick and tired and he just was like
that wasn't even
this.
scripted, and they that's one of those brilliant moments where it well, yeah, duh, why didn't we just do that? Like, why didn't we just raise the shields?
Oh my god!
In the beginning,
but then if they actually listened to Worf, they would not be in like half the situations that they've ever been in.
There wouldn't be much.
Like realistically, what we need to have is not a show called Picard. We need to have a show called Worf.
And I will make it a threesome.
Ooh.
That's really it. Like, this was not a very good story. If you think about it, like, the entire character of Shinzon was created by the Romulans. They took Picard's DNA, presumably at a point in Picard's career when he was a nobody. So, I mean, what if he had died, like, the next day on a random mission? Like, then the Romulans are SOL, right?
Yeah.
And so what they did is, of course, they engineered this clone so that his aging could be accelerated, so that he could then age up to be the age of Picard, because obviously Picard was an adult when his clone material was taken.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. So you have this character who's, like, the Romulans are banking that this guy named Jean-Luc Picard, who's not made a name for himself yet, is going to make a name for himself and be important enough to be swapped.
Yeah. Well, it all kind of depends on how fast. Well, no, because the whole like temporal cloning part doesn't really make sense.
Shinzon looks to be at least in his 20s, if like not 30s,
mid to late 20s, early 30s.
You know, but because he has to go through the adolescence, he has to go through the punishment. You know, so this was 20 to 30 years ago, and this is, maybe before the Stargazer, maybe after the Stargazer incident, like sometime.
So yeah, but thinking about it, you're very right. This is a no-named lieutenant probably at the time that they're just banking on. There's so many holes in this script and the story.
Now, if I'm the Romulans, I'm not just grabbing one guy's DNA.
No.
I'm grabbing every DNA sample I can get. So Shinzon should actually have a band of brothers and sisters of all different kinds of species in the Federation. Several humans, Andorians, Vulcans, whatever, that should have all been cloned at the same time. Where are they?
Yeah.
Now, that could have been an interesting story if it wasn't just Shinzon leading Remans, but it was Shinzon leading a contingent of
almost like a con kind of thing.
Yeah. So there's okay, within the nugget of the story you've chosen, there were actually branches you could have taken to make a far more interesting story.
So much more potential in a dozen different directions than the one that they went. But you're right, like that's a more interesting story where, because if you really think about it, okay, he's between the ages of 25 and 32, let's just say.
Yeah. And
so you have this 7-year window. So let's just cut the difference. He's 29 years old. So 29 years ago, how many samples did they take? Did the Romulans take?
Yeah.
Okay, now let's just say, for the sake of argument, they took 20 samples, different species, different people within the Federation, and now you have this group. Now they could augment, they could manipulate and do all sorts of shit. There's so much potential, and again, like what I said before, you could kind of go in the con, his people kind of situation. You can augment their strength, their intelligence, and there's so much potential right there.
I think one of the things that's really kind of disappointing was, okay, Shinzon explains that his ending up in the dilithium mines on Reman was because there was a change in leadership and the program was basically canceled. But I'm like, even if that were so, you have this human who's been raised Romulan. Even if you could change his appearance somewhat, he could still be a spy for the Romulans.
Exactly.
Like, easily implanted in Federation society.
And how many episodes of Star Trek did we see where they change their external
appearance. Oh yeah, all the time.
You know, how many times has like Picard become Romulan, or you know, didn't they even change Worf into a human once? I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't know, but like there's any number of avenues they could have taken in a Romulan Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
Balance of Terror was, I think, the original series episode where we encounter the Romulans, you know, and they were portrayed as being, you know, like supervillains, almost comic booky in nature. Like they're supposed to be that, and this movie was not great.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination. And it's unfortunate because it was so terrible, it ruined any opportunity for a subsequent film in the franchise by any series. Like, sorry, DS9 and Voyager, any kind of movie aspirations you had, not happening because Nemesis sucked that bad. That is too bad. And you really had to wait almost a generation for streaming services to sort of reinvent Star Trek and for the fan base to get nostalgic enough.
Yeah. Circling back to the fights, the space fights. Maybe you can help me understand this because your wealth of knowledge with Star Trek is by far larger than mine. I thought cloaked ships don't have shields.
They don't.
So why is it that the Scimitar keeps getting hit by random phaser and torpedoes, but doesn't take any actual damage?
I am assuming the Scimitar is also armored.
Okay.
So this is something that actually my husband and I talked about at length last night. Is why doesn't the Federation put any kind of protective armor at least around the sensitive areas of their ship?
Voyager,
because we brought up Voyager specifically. You can put material on the ship, like yes, it adds to the ship's mass and weight and
oh
like,
no, we're gonna go a little bit slower,
or you know, or it has more energy consumption or whatever. But shield generators often fail and get drained real fast in combat, and then you're just
fucked.
Got tissue paper between you and the hull. And so my guess, the Romulans probably employ a great deal of armor, particularly the Remans, because they're fighters.
True.
So all of their ships are designed for combat, and they would not rely on one particular method of defense like shields. They would have multiple layers of defense.
So in that battle scene when Shinzon tells his helmsman to stop, to first of all decloak a section of the ship and to make it look like he's wounded, and then full stop, and then he shoots a spread of torpedoes at the underbelly of that particular warbird, crippling it. Why does the Enterprise suddenly just decide, I'm going to stop moving? I'm just going to sit here for no reason.
Just eat some popcorn. Watch the show.
And then like the captain of the now crippled warbird signals Picard on the Enterprise and says that drink is going to have to wait. And then all of a sudden, Shinzon starts attacking the Enterprise. It's just like, why were you sitting still? Why weren't you firing at him?
Well, this goes to the fact that, again, the Federation is not a military organization, and I don't think Picard ever... I'm guessing the Enterprise didn't have much of a role in the Dominion War.
Apparently not.
Like, but, you know, that was probably written for dramatic and story plot point. Like, but the Romulans and the Enterprise had no coordinated tactics. Like, it was 3 against 1, and in any kind of true standoff fight, they should have been far more effective.
But wait, Worf was the one that was supposed to be coordinating with the other 2 ships, and they were clearly not listening to Worf's suggestions. That's why they weren't doing well.
Yeah, that's...
If they had all just listened to Worf.
Right. I think that's it.
Why weren't these 3 ships coordinating better? Why were they wasting torpedoes, first and foremost? Why were they wasting torpedoes on an invisible ship? use your phaser banks, locate the target. How fast is it going? What direction? I mean, these are computer systems that are supposed to be super high tech and super fast. Why?
And
Why are they not?
I would really like to know why torpedoes have no kind of guidance system. Like, we missed. Just keep going.
Just line of sight. Just line of sight.
Just like, okay.
And I mean, several times we see that Shinzon's ship, is predicting the path that the ships are taking, and so it shoots a spread of torpedoes. And I'm literally watching as the ship is flying like this, and just 1, 2, and 3 in all different spots hit these ships. But we can't.
There's a reason Shinzon was made the new Praetor, like, and the Remans learned their lessons well. And of course, we have to make the bad guys really badass initially, so that
their outfits. I know it was 2002 or basically 2001 when the movie was shot, but the puffy
the wardrobe,
oh my god,
Reman wardrobe.
No
practical sense. I don't know.
It was like somebody made up a new color combination and designed a new set of clothing, and they were like, that's what we need. Everybody in this species is going to wear this bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what is going on?
Because if you were a combat race, that's what you would wear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Uncomfortable, bulky, puffed jackets.
I love this scene where, I don't know if it's the Viceroy or one of them, but there's this keypad with all these Riemann symbols on it, and the fingernails are so long.
Holy shit.
And I'm like, yeah, that's not a keyboard design for a species with long fingernails.
The only thing that I could say about that was that the buttons were spaced just far enough that you could get your finger in between, the nail in between the buttons. But no, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's like watching a woman with 6-inch claws trying to type on a typewriter or a keyboard.
Yeah. So like, there's some practical elements where I think production design and like costume and makeup and wardrobe kind of need to sit together. And well, if the species has this kind of hand configuration, their consoles need to accommodate the ergonomics of the species.
You would think. And
now they're just going to make it more like, Romulans have normal hands, and so we're gonna make it so that the Romulans. Whatever. I don't know how much more I can talk about this movie. I mean, my list was pretty short because it was really hard to watch.
Yeah. No.
And it's actually not a very long movie.
No, out of all the movies, I think this is one of the shortest movies that they made. But there's so many plot holes. It's such a terrible movie.
Was there anything else that you want to say that you maybe liked about the movie, or?
No, I didn't like the movie at all. I mean, love the characters, love the actors, but this was not a script that they should, like, the actors should have been like, no.
Yeah, I agree. I think whenever you do a project like this, particularly because this was the 4th movie and there was nothing contracted after it, like, this could be the last. That's always the risk. This could be the last. So if it's going to be the last, it needs to have a degree of finality to it. And in a sense it did, in that Riker and Troy go off on the Titan.
And Data
dies. But you have B4, and there is the sense that, well, you can always bring them back. I mean, The original series did it too. But as a send-off, as a finale, I look at the series finale, All Good Things, as being the best. First Contact was a good movie. I liked Insurrection. Generations, I could take it or leave it. But comparing any of the feature films to the actual series finale, I think the series finale is their best work.
Yeah.
All Good Things. And for this movie to be, at the time, the end of the Next Generation saga was very disappointing. And then it turns out it wasn't the end.
We
and
had to
we'll
bring
talk
them all
about that
back 20 years later.
and we'll talk about that later. But for the possibility of this being the end, I mean, in many ways, I am glad that they did bring Picard.
Yeah.
And do a show on that, because at least, as much as I don't like Picard, I think some of the things they did in Picard were better than what they did in Nemesis.
Oh,
so it's I wouldn't say it
by
redeems it so much, but it makes it for a little bit better closing to that chapter than this film, because this film was just not very good. It wasn't good Star Trek. It wasn't good storytelling. I mean, there were elements that worked. Some elements of production design, like the visual effects, were fantastic. Some of the set designs
For the time.
were right for the time. This is 2002. Some of the set designs, were good in that regard. And I think, as far as performance goes, we talked about Ron Perlman and Tom Harding, and of course the original cast. Like, I don't think you can fault the flaws in the movie to anything associated with the acting. They can only deliver what's in the story.
Yeah, like I said before, you can have the world's best actors working on a movie, but that's not going to make the movie any better.
Yeah.
If the script is terrible.
Yeah.
The movie is going to be terrible. You're an alien species. You beam over to the Enterprise. You're walking around the ship. You're getting into phaser fights. You don't know the ship. I mean, maybe Ron Perlman's character, the Chancellor, or was it Viceroy? Viceroy. Maybe the Viceroy is smart enough to have done some research and read the schematics, but he sees a Jeffries tube. I can only assume it's a Jeffries tube, but it looks more like a garbage chute because he slides down it.
It looks like a garbage chute, yeah.
So he
Wonder where this goes.
In plain view of Worf and Riker and their security team, he walks over, shoots a security guard, a red shirt, killing him, and then sits down next to the Jeffries tube and looks at Riker. Riker takes a pop shot at him and misses, like by a foot at least.
Stormtrooper Riker.
Right? And then Ron Perlman just goes, wee! And then Riker is like, cover me! And Worf lunges onto the ground and starts shooting. Like, what are you doing, first and foremost? Second, Riker runs over and he goes wee down the Jeffries tube. And right there, if I were Ron Perlman's character, if I were the Viceroy, I would have just waited and then just absolutely beat the shit out of Riker as he pops his head out.
Oh, sure.
But instead, in the Jeffries tube, Riker is bent over because it's not a lot of headroom, but somehow the Viceroy is a level above him, hiding. Riker not once looks up. It always drives me nuts as you're watching these shows, watching these seasons. Why does nobody look around? Like, you just look forward. Half the time they don't even look behind them. And where does the monster come from? The monster always comes from behind.
Yeah.
In this case, he comes from behind and above, but Riker not once does he look up and see him. And it's like, Ron Perlman is not a small person.
No. Well, and of course, I served aboard an aircraft carrier. I worked in the engineering spaces, so I'm always fascinated by production designers who design these areas of the ship, and I'm like, what the hell is this space for? And why is there catwalks that go nowhere?
Yeah.
to spaces that have not like and a Jeffries tube or a chute that just goes to this space. Well, none of like the Jeffries tubes in general just don't make sense as access places on the ship. But okay.
Well, it's like in Galaxy Quest, again, making fun of the overall Star Trek universe. The hallway that they have to go down where there's, things crushing.
The chompers.
The chompers. It's like, why? And what's her name? Sigourney Weaver's character sits there and goes, who designed this? Whoever wrote this episode should be shot.
We'll have to review Galaxy Quest because
absolutely,
that movie speaks to me.
Oh, that movie was just fantastic. Well, anyway, I'm unless I want to raise my blood pressure even more than it already is, I'm good.
You're
I'm
good.
done.
All right. Well, that is all I can say Well, it's probably not all I can say. That's all I'm going to say about Star Trek Nemesis for now.
For now.
If you haven't seen it, you're not missing anything.
If you want to complete your, Star Trek world building, sure, but
I mean, it is a necessary watch in the sense that it is Data's death, and as many times as Brent Spiner has come back into Star Trek, he never came back as the Data we knew. So like, it's one you have to see, I guess, if you want to complete your understanding of the Star Trek narrative, of the Next Generation narrative. But it's a disappointing view. If you just want an action movie that'll entertain, it's not even really that, because there are moments of just long exposition scenes that really drag it down. Like,
not even in the middle, is somewhere near the beginning, and it's basically 30 to almost 40 minutes of just
talking heads. And they're not even doing anything interesting while they're talking.
No.
I think that's like
standing in a room, eating food, and they're not even eating food.
There's just food on the table. And they're just talking.
And talking. Anyway.
Well, at least walk and talk. Let us see a cool set or something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I got.
Well, this has been the C.I.C. podcast. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
We'll see you next time.